الله أكبر حي على الصلاة الله أكبر
Islam? Islam? Islam. In the name of Allah, who's most gracious and most merciful, all praise is due to Allah, the Lord of the worlds. Allah is the master of the day of judgment. And it is Allah's aid that we seek. It's Allah's aid we seek. It's Allah's aid we seek. I give honors to his holy divine prophet, Prophet Noble Drew Ali, who is the founder of the Moorish Science Temple of America, and the one who is continuing to teach me to learn and love instead of hate. I am so grateful to be in a space where people ask questions like, how can I stop hating? That's right. And when you ask that question, sister, I could feel literally the emotions coming off of you, thinking of situations where you've been in, where you're like, my response is still that of hate. I want it to be love. What can I do about that? That's a beautiful question to ask. And that means you've already on a step. Because when the brother was talking about a 12-step process and the whole thing about addiction, the brother is absolutely right. We don't want to identify with the thing. But the Quran also says a sense of his state is his first duty, which means you got to know where you are. And so sometimes addicts say, I'm not addicted. Let me borrow $5. I'm not on a substance. Just let me get $5. So the first part is, I'm still in a state where I hate sometimes. I'm there. That's where I am. I was in a store the other day and the brother came up to me. He said, peace, Noble. He said, how are you? I said, brother, I'm just trying to be my best. He said, you are your best. And I said, I hear you, brother. I hear you. I said, brother, but I'm trying. And I knew what he was trying to tell me. He was like, nah, Mo, you got to speak to existence. You your best. I was like, Mo, I'm trying. And sometimes I'm not there. And I got to be careful to not act like I'm always there, because vanity is above them all. And the hard thing about vanity is it makes you think you're somewhere that you're actually not, and you never challenge yourself. And not only do you not challenge yourself, when someone challenges the part of you that's stuck in vanity, you say, get away from me. I don't want to listen to that. I'm not there. That's you. You tripping. That's not me. And this movement is about studying who? Self. It's not about studying you. Now, sometimes I can see things in you most plainly, but if I can see them most plainly in you, you know why I can? Because I've seen them in myself. I got the vision to see him here. And so when I see him here, if I see it in you, then maybe I can assist. But all I can do is say, brother, maybe you should try this. And you say, brother, I'm too bad. And I say, all right, well, praise Allah. And then the next time it comes out, I say, brother, remember last time we talked? Why don't you try this time? I'm not trying. All right, brother. And the third time, same thing may go over and over again, but the only person who can change you is you. I'm going to say something even more radical. Should I say it? Say it. The prophet doesn't even save you. The prophet was teaching you to do what? Save yourself. He said, if I can get you to think, you can save yourself. But I don't even want to minimize or lower the level of what thinking or what thought actually is. When we talk about Allah's thoughts, remember chapter 1 says that the thoughts of Allah cannot be circumscribed. And so that means that when we think about the thoughts of Allah, we aren't even close to what it is. Because our thoughts are typically in the bounds of they're circumscribed, typically speaking. They are not infinite thoughts. And circumscribed thoughts, ways of having boundaries, is a part of European ideals and ways of seeing the world. They perceive everything as if it doesn't, everything they see is about the outer. That's right. They don't see inner. And I'm not speaking radical about them. I'm speaking about sort of the way that they thought, the way they saw the world. And I understand why they saw it that way, because of how they came into existence. I get it. They're like, if it's not in my face and physical and manifest, then it's not. And then we learned that way of thinking. And it became a part of everything we do. Even so much so that sometimes we call ourselves comedic scientists or sometimes more scientists, but we're still thinking similar to a Eurocentric way of thinking. Which is why this movement is so important, because it's constantly making you say, okay, well, where are you? I got to do a self-check. Every day, at the end of the night, I go upstairs in a room, a special room I have, and I say, okay, well, where am I today? What happened? Where's my thinking? What did I go wrong? What did I go right? What are the things that I did? So to even answer your question further, sister, there are things I'm sure you're really good at. And the things that I'm good at, I notice that I'm good at them because I've practiced them over and over again. I have learned a particular way to respond to situations. It is learned. It's not innate. It's not something that is me. I learned it. And now my thoughts are starting to try and tell me that it is you. That's not me. So the thoughts are powerful, but let me say something else radical. You're not your thoughts. Your thoughts are merely tools. But if you start to believe you are your thoughts, then that also takes over. You're not your thoughts. There are tools that you're supposed to be utilizing. Man is not the body nor the soul. Thinking is an aspect of the soul. You're not even that. You are a spirit and a part of Allah. The thing that you actually are is God manifest. Do you know what you can do if you are in the realization of God manifest? There's nothing that I can say that can describe to you what you can do, because it cannot be circumscribed. I can't describe that. But what I do know is that sometimes people say, I can't do this, I can't. Our people have survived terrorism for hundreds of years. And so there is absolutely nothing that we can't do. I work with kids. I work with families. I've seen the terrorism that they have talked about from the historical past, and including their current conditions. And they are still striving. How are you a mother that doesn't have support at home and you got 3 kids, you working 3 jobs, and you still get your kids to school every day? Wow. How can you do that? And then some of us are saying, well, why did you come to a parent meeting? Well, I know why, because you're tired. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to try and come to your house to meet you. Because I know that you're tired from all that you're doing. I'm not going to talk about why you can't do something. I know why. I know the conditions that we've come up in. I know the struggles that we've had. And I am amazed at the fact that we are still here. After all of this stuff, we survived. And now we not just surviving, we also are thriving. Because it's not enough to just survive. We didn't come here to just survive. We have a purpose. We have a reason for being. When Jesus said that he wrought with his Father as a carpenter, or when he said that I'm about my Father's work, his Father's work is his purpose. You got your Father's work too. And whatever your Father's work is for you, you better do it. Don't let anyone stop you, including your mother or your father. Whatever your purpose is, do it, because you made a covenant with those from the other world and said, when I come here this time, I'm going to do it. Wow. You decided that. And you said, I might have to go through these struggles, because if I go through these struggles, these are experiences that I may have that are necessary for me to get to my goal, but I'm going to get my purpose done. And if you're going to get your purpose done, don't let no one stop you. No one, including you. Don't let you stop you from getting your Father's work done. That's what this movement is about. I have no idea why I'm talking about all this. That was not my plan. I'm giving honors to, I gave honors to the prophet. Thank you, prophet. Giving honors to the Honorable Marcus Garvey. I want to give honors to my ancestors as well. People joke with us in Memphis when they talk to us. They say, y'all the ancestor temple. Y'all always talk about the ancestors. I say, yes, we are. We always talk about the ancestors. And the reason we always talk about the ancestors is because you know what happened when we stopped talking about the ancestors? Let's go to it. The Quran tells us what happened when we did that. So in chapter 47, Egypt, the capital empire of the dominion of Africa. And I'm going to go to instruction 16. Well, let me start at 15. Instruction 15 says, the time has come when every nation must worship under its own vine and fig tree, and every tongue must confess his own. Through sin and disobedience, every nation has suffered slavery due to the fact that they honored not the creed and principles of their forefathers. That is why the nationality of the Moors was taken away from them in 1774, and the word Negro, black, and colored was given to the Asiatics of America who were of Moorish descent. Why? Because they honored not the principle of their mother and father and strayed after the gods of Europe, of whom they knew nothing. And it is really easy, Morris, for us to say, we don't stray after the gods of Europe anymore. But the brother mentioned earlier very, very clearly that the gods of Europe are the ideals of Europe. And when you are immersed in a container, and the container is what the brother was describing as European psychology, sometimes it becomes very difficult to know whether you are acting that out or not. I'll give an example of myself. My son, who is now 2.5 years old, he's a drummer. He's a djembe drummer. And I don't say that lightly. You ever seen my son play? He gets down. It is like And I didn't teach him a thing. This is all, he used to watch YouTube videos for hours of drumming, and then he would repeat it, and just watch it, and then he would start doing, he came here with that. That's not us. And so I know that about him. And there are times where he's trying to figure something out. And he's trying his best to do it. And he'll say, and I'll say, Wali, his name is Wali. I say, Wali, you want me to help you? He goes, no. And I'm his father, so I'm like, I want to help you figure this out. Wali, do you want me to help you? No. And then there was a moment in all of his no's that I realized he is trying to experience this, and he's fine with it so that he can learn and grow. Why are you stopping him? And then I had to check my mentality. I thought that he was weaker than he actually was. And I had to watch myself. And I had to watch myself with my wife, who my wife was like, you do a lot for us. Can you let me do that? I was like, no. I'm the husband. You see my voice got deeper? I'm the husband. I got this. And she said, I know what you're trying to do, but I need to also make sure I'm able to do this as well. And at that moment I said, well, wait a minute. Is what I'm doing out of love, or is it also a little part of me that sees her as not capable? I had to check myself. That idea of seeing her as not as capable of doing the things that she can do, the idea of not seeing my son as capable, that sort of idea and system came from somewhere. That's not our ancient forefathers. They didn't think like that. They didn't do things like that. And so then in that moment, I was like, okay, you still are acting out in a way that is not being honoring of your ancient forefathers and foremothers. And so I got to change that. And it's merely practice. I know the brother said I'm a grand sheik. I am a Moorish American who is trying their best to be their best self at all times. And sometimes I mess up. And I'm grateful when brothers call me and sisters call me to the side and say, brother, you're not being your best self. I said, all right. Now I got to get better. That's the hard thing about this movement too. A lot of times we want to just talk about information and sound very intelligent. This is a practical movement. This is you got to figure it out your stuff yourself movement. Just because you sound smarter than someone else don't mean you better than someone else. Just because I'm standing here does not mean that I am in a better condition than you are. None of that means that. Only you know. And some of you have gone through tougher things and defeated tougher obstacles than I have ever defeated. And so I can't look at any of you with scorn. That's the hard thing about this movement. Act 1 of the Divine Constitution of Bylaws is a checks and balance. The Grand Sheik, hold on, let me not mess it up. I'm about to mess it up because I'm excited. The Grand Sheik and Chairman of the Moorish Shine Temple of America is empowered to make law and enforce law with the assistance with the assistance of the Prophet and the Grand Body of the Moorish Shine Temple of America. The Assistant Grand Sheik is to assist the Grand Sheik in all affairs if he lives according to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, and it is known before the members. It's a checks. It's like, this is all great if. And if is a powerful word because it stops everything before and says, okay, now listen to this. So you have to be living and being a particular way to be in a particular position. It's not just about your outward title. Our prophet taught us that. He said, you're not the body nor the soul. You are a spirit and part of Allah. So our prophet immediately taught us to look outside of the exterior of a thing to see its true nature. That's what this movement is about. That is the way our forefathers saw the world. I'll bear witness to this. I've been in a lot of different places, different West African traditions, etc. And I was recently in a place in North Carolina, and a brother in the West African tradition called the Dagara tradition. And he said something that made me say, whoa. And it took me back to saying, okay, it checked my way of thinking again. He said they were talking about ancestral shrines and things of that sort. And I know in the West, sometimes we do some of these things. We put ancestral shrines and we put pictures of our ancestors and candles, etc. And he said something so simple that I never thought about. He said, we believe that the ancestors are actually living, which none of us in here would disagree with that. The Quran doesn't disagree with that. And he said, and they are a part of our community. We would agree with that. He says, so therefore, in our community, they have to have a place. If someone is living in a part of your community, why would you not give them a place in your community? So we set space for them in this area because they are a part of us. And I was like, huh. a very sort of practical way of seeing it. And then he said, and then of course my other thought was like, well, are you saying that the ancestors are only there? The Quran doesn't teach that. Where did that thought come from? But I thought, well, you got to be, you're saying the ancestors only exist in this space? He was like, of course not. Because we're talking about ancestors from a soul perspective. And the soul is not bound in the same way that the physical is bound. But Webb-Bey's immediate mind was, well, you talking about it's got to be in that circumscribed space. That is the Eurocentric way of thinking and seeing the world taking over the way I see another tradition. And I had to check it. And immediately when he said it, my mind said, boom. And so now I couldn't go back because I had moved to another way of seeing the world. He said, when we go outside, the reason we treat the earth a certain way is because we believe that the earth is a spirit and it has life and it has intelligence. I was like, well, I guess I believe that the earth has life, it has spirit, it has intelligence. And so he talked about sacrifice, which the Quran talks about sacrifice. And for us, we're like, no sacrifice. No sacrifice. Cool. And so that was the mentality I had. But for a second, I said, well, let me listen to him. Instead of trying to put my stuff on them, let me listen. And he said, when we sat, he said, there's actually no word in our tradition for sacrifice. He said, there's a word for transfusion. There's a word for nourishment, but we don't have a word for sacrifice. Immediately at that point, I was like, oh, I got to shut up. It's something I don't know. I got to be quiet and stop trying to put my stuff on something. And he said, when we actually do what you all are calling sacrifice and the blood touches the ground, he said the earth is an intelligent species and it knows what to do with that and it transfuses it into the energy that's needed somewhere else. And immediately I said, you didn't think the earth was intelligent. You didn't think that the earth knew what to do with particular things. And I'm not saying that's right or not. No care for that. That's their tradition. I honor their tradition. My point was they saw the earth totally different than I did. And the way I was perceiving the earth was like dirt. And he said, if you see the earth as dirt, then you think dirty. He said, the earth isn't dirty. So he said, that's our mother. How could you call your mother dirty? I was like, whoa. But it checked my way of seeing and thinking and seeing the world. So I realized, oh, I still got stuff to check in myself. My thoughts are still in a particular way. And so now when I go outside and I see earth, I say, good morning, mother. Good morning, mother. When I see nature, I speak to nature. It wasn't, the Moorish Tool of America didn't do that to me. You know why I know it didn't do it to me? Chapter 1 of the Moorish Tool of America. And it's so interesting because we get so caught up in this container of European ideas. Sometimes we can't even see that we are thinking a particular way. That's a difficult role. I don't know how the prophet was able to do what the prophet was able to do. Because it's too difficult to change a people to think a way when they don't even know they're thinking a particular way in the first place. That's a difficult task. And so I have to give honors to the prophet. Going in chapter 1, and where it says, hear now. Say Islam if you're with me. Islam. It says, hear now, you cherubim, you seraphim, you angels, and you men. If you're asking someone to hear, that means they can do what? They can hear or listen. If you're saying, hey, hear me, that means that someone has the capacity to be able to hear and listen. Cool. So cherubim, seraphim, angels, and men, they can listen. Hear now, O protoplasm in earth and plant and beast. Oh, earth, plant, beast, protoplasm can listen? Hear now, ye creeping things of earth, ye fish that swim, ye birds that fly. Hear now, ye winds that blow. Winds can listen. Ye thunders and ye lightnings of the sky. Thunder, lightning can listen. Hear now, ye spirits of the fire, of water, earth, and air. So where did I get it from that earth didn't have a spirit? Where did I get that from? Because this tells me that this has a spirit and is living and is intelligent. And how do you treat something that has intelligence? You treat it with intelligence. You treat it in a way that it deserves to be respected. And when he said we have done a terrible job of taking care of our mother, it hit me to my heart. It's like, wow, we've done a terrible job of taking care of our mother. And so I immediately said, I got to shift the way I think about mama. Because if I'm seeing her wrong, if I'm seeing that mama wrong, then how am I seeing other mamas? I got to change the way I think. And I can't just change the way I think. Now I got to act on it. Islam. And so that's why we give honors to our ancestors, because we don't want to go back to a way of thinking that was not conducive to our divine salvation. The brother said Islam was for our earthly and divine salvation. Christianity was for their just earthly salvation, not the divine salvation. So what about the way of thinking that Islam brought to us, or that Islam, not brought to us, Islam nourished in us, that allowed it to be divine? It's being able to see the spirits and the life in every single thing, and recognizing its intelligence and knowing that it actually exists and utilizing it when appropriate. I'm not there yet. Those are thoughts I have. It's intelligent. It's a way of thinking. But I know from this Quran that knowledge, true knowledge, is not the stuff I have in my head. How do I know that? I'll go here and then I'm going to sit down before I sweat too much and take up too much time. True knowledge is not just thinking. So when Jesus was talking to Barata Rabo, chapter 11, Jesus and Barata together, they read the sacred books. Starting at instruction 1, it reads, say Islam if you're with me. Islam. Among the Buddhist priests was one who saw a lofty wisdom in the words that Jesus spoke. It was Barata Rabo. Together, Jesus and Barata read the Jewish Psalms and prophets, read the Vedas, the Avesta, and the wisdom of Gautama. And as they read and talked about the possibilities of man, Barata said, "Man is the marvel of the universe. He is part of everything, for he has been a living thing on every plane of life. Time was when man was not, and then he was a bit of formless substance in the mold of time and then a protoplasm. By universal law, all things tend upward to a state of perfectness. The protoplasm evolved, becoming worm, then reptile, bird, and beast, and then at last it reached the form of man. Now man himself is mind, and mind is here to gain perfection by experience, and mind is often manifest in fleshy form, and in the form best suited to its growth. So mind may manifest as worm, or bird, or beast, or man. The time will come when everything of life will be evolved into the state of a perfect man, and after man is man in perfectness, he will evolve to higher forms of life." That sounds beautiful, like Barata Rabo was demonstrating. That's what it sounds like. Let's see what Jesus says. And Jesus said, "Barata Rabo, who taught you this? That mind which is man may manifest in flesh of beast or bird or creeping thing." So Jesus immediately says, "Well, let me ask you, who taught you these particular things?" And Barata said, "From time which man remembers not. Our priests have told us so, and so we know." So Barata's response was, "The preacher told me. And as long as we've known, that's what they've told us happened." Jesus' response to that was, and Jesus said, "Enlighten Rabo." He didn't want to offend him too much, so he said, "You're enlightened. You're an enlightened one. Enlighten Rabo. Are you a mastermind and do not know that man knows naught by being told?" And he didn't say man knows not. Be clear on this. He said man knows naught. And naught is, we learn in chapter 7, is illusion. So Barata knew something. He only knew the illusion. And listen, illusion isn't bad. Illusion is only bad when you think it's real. But illusion is nothing but an illusion. It just is. And as a matter of fact, it has its purpose. So I'm not saying something bad about illusion, and neither is Jesus. He says you know not by being told. So just because someone tells you something, all you know is the illusion of said thing. That's it. All you know is the outer form of said thing when someone tells you about it. If I told you something, if I said, roller coasters are really fun. They are great. And let me tell you, you go up, you go down, you say you do all these wonderful things, roller coasters are fun. The only way you can really know roller coasters fun is by doing what? Getting on the roller coaster. But you can hear from my perspective what it may be like. And you can start to say in your mind, that might be fun to me. But the only way you can actually know is by experience, right? And so Jesus says, "Enlighten Rabo, are you a mastermind and do not know that man knows naught by being told? Man may believe what others say, but thus he never knows. If man would know, he must himself be what he knows. Do you remember Rabo when you were ape or bird or worm? Now, if you have no better proving of your plea than that the priests have told you so." In other words, Jesus is like, if you remember when you were ape, bird, or worm, then we can talk about it. But if all you're saying is the priest told you this, he says, you do not know, you simply guess. It's beautiful. And the next instruction, he says, "Regard not then what any man has said. Let us forget the flesh and go with mind into land of fleshless things. Mind never does forget." And then he goes into a long sort of discussion in turn that goes a lot more instruction in terms of what the reality is. And typically, as more Shamarics we read that, we say, you see, Jesus demonstrated, Barata Rabo didn't. But in one sense, Jesus tells him just by being told something, you only get belief. And then we're like, oh, but he told him then. Or did Jesus actually take him to where he was talking about? I won't get into that. So we'll stop right there. But I say all that to say, this is an experience movement. It is about trying this stuff out. It is a more science temple for a reason. It's experimentation. So when the sister asks a beautiful question, like, how do we talk to people out there? Like, how do we get it? And here's the reality of that statement. It's a beautiful question, and it's a difficult one too. Because the reality is, all of us, if we really had to answer it honestly, well, I don't know. We do the best we can. That's it. So it doesn't end here. A thing that I personally do, I wear my fez everywhere, which sometimes is great, sometimes it's not. Because sometimes I'm an introvert and I just don't want to really be talked to. And everyone's like, what's that, right? And so I'm constantly having conversations about nationality. At my school, I wear this so the kids see this. My coworkers see this. And one time I said I was going to check it off. The kids were like, no. I don't even want to know what's under there. Just keep it on. And so they have an association with a particular way of being, and I hope I'm doing an okay job, and being Moorish American. That's the part that I do. Is it enough? Probably not. But that's all that I can do. But the best type of fisherman, the brother used the fish example. You know who would make the best fisherman? Fish. If they decide to fish, they will make the best fishermen because they know exactly what fish want. So those are the best fishermen. And so sometimes we do a good job with our bait, sometimes we don't. And I don't even like to call it bait. Sometimes we do a good job, sometimes we don't. But we're trying. And the best effort for me that I've done is try to work these lessons on myself. And if I can help someone that's out there, if I can help to uplift fallen humanity. The prophet was so wise. How did the prophet begin to uplift the Moorish Americans? And what a question. The question is assuming, so because sometimes we proclaim our nationality and we assume, oh, I got it. I'm uplifted now. But then the prophet says, well, how did I begin to uplift too? The Moorish Americans, which assumes that you've proclaimed your nationality. So they had to also be uplifted, he said, by teaching them to be themselves. So that's what this is about, trying to work these lessons out. I'm trying them. And before I sit, I want to give honors to my wife. She's in Memphis, Tennessee. She's with my son right now. I don't want to ever forget the work that she does when I'm not there to make sure our child is all right. And sometimes it's a thankless job, right? Because he's not thanking her. He's like, just give me some more food, right? Or do this with me, or do that with me. And I'm working, and she's not knocking the fact that I'm working, I'm doing the different things I'm doing. But I don't ever want to forget the sacrifices she makes, because it's still sacrifice. She's his mother, so she's like, I have to do it. She don't have to. So I appreciate the sacrifice she makes, and I never want to take a moment when I'm away from them and I'm speaking in front of people to not honor the work and the sacrifice that she does. That's my job in Acts 7. When it says to support your wife and children, support is a whole lot of stuff. Support is a lot of stuff. So I would tell brothers who would start talking about their wives, talk about somebody else, and I was like, don't ever talk bad about your wife with someone else, ever. And I know my wife's stuff. She got some stuff. And I will never let anyone reveal her stuff publicly in a way that could demean her.
That's right.
Ever. Because it's my job to support her. And supporting her means supporting her growth. And that means that I might have to lay it down on the line to support her growth if necessary. Now, when we get back home, I might say, sister, that was you. You shouldn't have done that. That was you. That shouldn't have happened. And then when we get back to the public, I will say, don't say that about my wife out loud. Because that's my job. And so when I'm here, it is my job to remember and to send the energy and the spirit to her that says, I support you and I support everything that you're doing, and thank you for doing everything that you're doing for our son. And with that, Moors, I say peace.
Allahu Akbar. Hayya ala salah. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Hayya ala salah. Allah